Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. This is episode 6 in my series called Between the Leaves. So if you've missed episodes 1 through 5, that's fine. They're only 15 minutes long. You can go back and watch them after we're done here today. Episode 1, I just share a little bit about my journey at Ancestry. Episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5, I get to talk to the content team here at Ancestry, where they give you the behind-the-scenes look at exactly what is going on with how Ancestry acquires records, how we digitize and scan them, and how we publish them online. Today, I am joined by a dear friend and colleague, Ann Mitchell. She is a product manager here at Ancestry, so let me go ahead and bring her on. And there you are.
Hi, Krista.
Hi. It's been a while since we've been on camera together.
Too long. Glad to be here with you today.
I'm glad you're here. So some of you may not know this, but Ann and I actually did the very first live stream for Ancestry about 11 years ago, and she is the one who gave me the moniker, the Barefoot Genealogist. So thank you for that.
It fit, and you've been a legend ever since. That's
kind of does, yeah. So why don't you tell our friends that are watching a little bit about yourself and how long you've been with Ancestry and what you've done here at the company?
I have been at Ancestry for 14 years. I've worked as a product manager on products like Search, Ancestry Classroom, Library, RootsWeb, and now I am working on Hints Generation. All of those little leaves you get, I help get them to you. I joined the company because I love family history.
So you don't just speak tech geek, you also are a little bit of a genealogy nerd. So tell us a little bit about your genealogy journey.
Well, when I first came here, I have an engineering background, software engineering background, but I've always loved family history, right? Where my family came from and all of that. And when the opportunity arose here at Ancestry, it was like, I have to have this job. So, and in my 14 years here, I've gone from being pretty much a novice. Ancestry's given me the opportunity to sharpen my skills. I've done Boston University course. I mean, I lecture. I really feel like I can claim to be a genealogist now. I really care about family history. That is my true passion.
You know what? And we are so lucky and grateful to have somebody who cares as much about family history in the position that you are in. So the last few episodes, we've talked about the Ancestry content acquisition and production and publication process. At that point in a records journey, that's where the teams of product managers and engineers and others in our product and technology organization with Ancestry kind of take over that journey of a record. So Ancestry has more than 30 billion records online from more than 80 countries around the world. There's an average of 3 million new records every day being added to the site, not to mention the 100 million plus family trees and all the individual people identified in each of those trees, and then photos and documents uploaded by our members to those trees. That's a lot of data that needs to be sifted through in order for someone to find their next family history discovery. So the million-dollar question for you, Ann, is can you explain a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes in order to sort through all of that information to deliver a hint to someone who visits the Ancestry site?
Love to. It's a fascinating process, really. And I think you set it up really well because we have all of these billions of records, right? And they're all stored. I mean, we're talking terabytes of information that have to be processed. So it's like, how do you organize all that stuff so you get the right one hint to the person? Because nobody cares about billions. They care about that one hint. So there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on. But what we're trying to do is we take all of our records and then we take our family trees and we're trying to organize them into people because that's what everybody's searching for, right? So it's like, how do we take all this information and combine it into what we think is one person? Now, do we get it always right? No, of course not. It's hard to do. But that's what we're trying to do. So when we get all the records and family trees and user stories and all that into one person, and then you come in and you have a new node or you've changed a node, we look at what we've got and we're like, oh, you don't have this record. We better tell you about it. Because that's what a hint is, right? It's not like we know this is a fact because we don't. Because you need to get involved. But it's like, we have this record and we really think you are going to want to see it because it very well might be something you're interested in. And that's what a hint is. It's our way of showing you what we know.
So let's talk a little bit about that process of Ancestry taking all of this data and using these algorithms to sort that data into unique individuals. Some records, I imagine, like a census record, are going to stitch better into that unique identity than some other records. Can you give us a little bit of insight into that?
Love to. So some of the records that we start with as we're identifying unique people, we have birth, marriage, and death records, right? You might have find a grave or a death certificate or a birth certificate. Those kind of records, like you said, we can put them together, stitch them together much more easily because we have relationships, we have vital dates. It's just like you would do it, right? Where are you going to start? You're going to start with things where you can easily identify the person. Then we can take other records and, based on maybe less information, like a city directory, make pretty good guesses. And it's at that point that we start to look at, oh, what have other users done, right? We're combining all the records, but then it's like, do users agree with us? How does that impact what the unique person is? And then we have all these algorithms that we pass all this data through. It's like, and they put different scores on things, right? And sure, sometimes it makes mistakes because there's billions of records. But we have our data science teams work on these algorithms. We have our engineers work on these algorithms. Our pro genealogists come in and do error checking and validity checking for us. Now, they don't check every record, but they let us know if things are working correctly on the ones they do look at.
So they're kind of trying to train the algorithms.
Exactly what they're doing. And it's an ongoing process, right? Every year we make updates. We're always looking at new ways to do things, a lot of little magical things that go on behind the system, but it is a never ending process. And this recombining of records, it's not like we've done it and we walk away and then we update it a year later. It happens every day. Every time new information comes in, whether it's a new record, a new tree, a new story, it comes in to the system so that we can tell the users about it. Because this is the most important thing. I mean, let me tell a story about you and me. Okay. So and I don't know whether you got this through hints or DNA, but do you remember when you found the story about your ancestor back in the Civil War, and they wrote this letter and they traveled from, I think it was Georgia to Arkansas. It was this long letter. And I remember because I was in the Utah office at the time, and you dragged me in. You didn't drag me. We went into a conference room and we spent an hour reading this letter, right? And I mean, it was so emotional. But that's the kind of thing that we're always looking to do. It's like these little just golden nuggets that are out there, because if I can get that as a hint to one person, I can change the way they look at their family.
Yeah.
Not me personally, but we Ancestry can. I feel pretty personal about it, though. And if we can change people's view on their family, I mean, it's magical, right? Yeah. I want everybody to feel the magic that I know you and I do when we find those records. That's what we're after.
Absolutely. So well said. And thank you for reminding me about that. I hadn't forgotten about it, but it's been kind of in the back of my mind. This idea, though, that there are some hints that have a higher kind of a quality score in the background and some hints that have a lower quality score. So every hint that we deliver to a user, if they get, 12 hints on one person in their tree, those hints aren't all necessarily of the same validity or the same quality. Every hint still has to be reviewed. Every hint still has to be kind of taken, and taken apart, right? Evaluated and analyzed to determine, is this for my person? And then sometimes we have to review hints in context with other hints to determine which ones to throw out and which ones to keep. And it's kind of it's a dynamic process on the research side. So it's no surprise to me that it's also a dynamic process on the algorithm side. So this concept of this constant shifting and recombining of information going on, I love hearing about that. So can you also then tell us a little bit about dynamic hint delivery? So if I save a record to my tree, or if I reject a hint, how does that inform the hint algorithms?
Yes, user actions definitely do. So let's say that you just found a 1950 census, because we all got to do that. That was so much fun. And you attach it to your tree. And you and I actually are, I think fourth, fifth cousins. I can't exactly remember. We share an ancestor. So let's say you found a record about that shared ancestry you and I have, and you attached it to your tree. Because of the way the algorithms work, that record then will show up in my hints because it's like, oh, it passes through the quality control algorithms, all that stuff, and then it puts it in my hint list if I go back and I look at that person, because that way what you found also helps inform the system.
Yeah.
And there are lots of ways that we look at, and we're continuing to improve. It's like, well, how do we evaluate users and that kind of thing? But we're always looking at ways that we can use our users to help inform other users, as well as the own things that we find.
Yeah. And we've got some of the most brilliant minds in the world working on these problems. You mentioned data scientists and engineers. You're a product manager, lots of different people in the product and technology organization here at Ancestry. How many just would you guesstimate of total employees touch this process of delivering hints to Ancestry members?
Wow, a lot of people. I would say full time, probably between 20 and 25. Full time. That is all they think about. They live, eat, and breathe it. And then it's easily well over 100 people who at least part time work on making sure that we get the right hints delivered. Because it takes everybody from a family historian, the pro genealogist, to data analysts, to engineers, data scientists, QA people, the people who help us test. There is just a huge volume of people who help us work on this. There's a lot of people.
Yeah. So it's how we deliver hints to our customers. We've talked a lot over the last few weeks about how records get online, but I love how you mentioned at the beginning of our time together here today that, it doesn't matter if Ancestry has 30 billion records if you can't find the one record that you need, that one really meaningful Civil War letter that was uploaded to someone else's tree that just happened to pertain to my family, right? And so when people interact with Ancestry hints, just for everybody who's watching, just to be really clear, first of all, you have to have a tree on Ancestry in order to participate in this hinting process. So you start with yourself and your parents and your grandparents, and hopefully, like our hope and our job is, as soon as you enter those grandparents, we're hoping you're getting some hints to the 1950 census or to a World War II draft card or some really low-hanging fruit kind of record. But then once people start building out their tree and following those hints, and do you have any advice for the best process or the best way for people to interact with all of the hints that they're going to be delivered?
Yes. And I think you and I probably discussed this before, and I'm pretty sure this follows some of the things you tell people. You always want to, take the one person, look at every record, photo, whatever you can get. Make sure you look at the images. Do not just attach. Make sure you look at the images. There's all sorts of goodness on there. And then let's say you have your grandparents. Make sure then you do what would be their children or your aunts and uncles, because you never know where that one piece of information is going to be. And if you know who all their children are, it helps you identify the correct records later on. And then you go up a generation. It's always good to process as many as you can. And if you don't do them all, that's fine. Not everything will be interesting to you, but do take a look and sort of go through them. And sometimes it's good. If you haven't worked on a person in a while, go back and look at all your accepted hints and just look through the images. One of the things that I think we do is we learn so much through time about how to be better family historians. But think about the people you did early on. You didn't have all those skills back then. So if you go back and you look at the images and you do all that stuff, always go back and review. And you never know what we might have that's new, right? I was just going back and looking at my husband's side of the family. It was like, oh, right, we have all these Indiana BMDs. I hadn't even thought to go look for those. And it just gave me all sorts of new information that I found really interesting. So it's just a constant process. Do them one at a time, just like you would do search, and look at the image and make sure you go broad as well as moving up your tree. It's always same basic things you learn everywhere.
Yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people are really tempted by that all hints list, and the concept of actually processing or reviewing hints one person and one family at a time means you're going to have more context to know whether this is right or wrong. I love that you mentioned adding those family members. Very often I'll get a hint for an uncle's death certificate that lists the name of the parents, including the mother's maiden name, when my grandfather or great whatever grandfather's death certificate didn't list that information. And so sometimes reviewing hints for a complete family and context is going to give you a lot more success. Well, Anne, thank you so much for joining me today. We are out of time, but I do have one last question for you, and it's a question I've been asking all of my guests. I would just love to hear what your favorite thing is about working here at Ancestry.
I love working at Ancestry because we have, one, amazing people such as yourself, and two, I am always learning something new. I am always have this opportunity to learn so much about history and about the people in my family, and it's just a great job.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
Anytime.
Well, I may have to take her up on that and bring her back. We will continue this series. So every other Tuesday here on YouTube, you can watch live at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, or you can catch the replay at any time. We will put these videos are going into a playlist called Between the Leaves on the Ancestry YouTube channel. And I hope you'll check out the other videos if you've missed any, or join me again in 2 weeks where we continue talking about the journey of a record through Ancestry. Until next time, I'm Crista Cowan.